Good afternoon, folks. Happy Friday. Jeff Kozlowski here, just jumping on this afternoon. So, I wanted to talk about remote productions and specifically focusing on the guest side of remote productions. Everybody these days seems to be doing remote productions in some form or another, whether that be virtual events, live Q&As, live streaming their podcasts, etc. Obviously, if you're a producer of something like this, you need to make sure your setup is solid. You need solid internet connection. You need the equipment that's good enough for you to be able to communicate with your guests in an effective manner, and put on a good show for the audience. But um, equally as important is your guest setup. Their audio, their video, and connection. They all of that needs to be solid for them as the subject matter experts, so they as the subject matter experts can get their point and messages across clearly to the audience. So I wanted to come on and talk about what you can do to set your guests up for success and ultimately set your stream up for success. And so, this is for those out there that if you're thinking of doing any remote interviews that are streamed, or you're hosting like remote panel discussions or other kinds of remote events, you're thinking about streaming your podcasts, you'll want to take a listen, and listen into some of these tips I have for you. So for a little bit of background, I've been running remote productions in some form or another for the last 3 years or so, and doing them almost daily, Monday to Friday, since COVID hit almost a year ago. Doing daily live streams with a Department of Defense client through my full-time jobs for my full-time job. And of course, with every live stream or event, there are new challenges. No stream is the same. There is always a lesson to be learned along the way. And so I started, as I did these streams over time, especially since I started doing remote productions. And the remote productions I do now daily are mainly remote, bringing in, two people remotely to have a conversation on a topic, or, a panel of maybe 4 or 5 people to do a virtual panel discussion. And so over time, I've been keeping a list, and like I said, there's always a lesson to be learned. So there's always notes to be taken, and that you can send to your guests moving forward to make sure that it continues to be a smooth process for them. You want your guests to be comfortable, and so a couple of things I may talk about here are specific to the streaming software Switcher Studio, and that's because I use Switcher Studio for all of my full-time work that I do with the DoD clients. So for my personal work, like this podcast right now, this stream I'm doing right now, I use Streamyard, which I love. I've also used Restream in the past. If you're considering softwares, this is a little bit of a tangent, but if you're considering streaming on your own, I think StreamYard has honestly given me the best experience when it comes to talking to remote guests, and that could be because they are a cloud-based system. So, that could be part of it. There's no software that you have to download or that's causing your computer to work harder to produce the live stream. Everything exists on, StreamYard servers. So, your computer isn't necessarily doing a whole lot of extra work when it comes to pushing this live stream. And I think, the same goes for when you have guests on. So the remote guest experience has been good with StreamYard if you're thinking about getting a software like this. Love Switcher Studio for everything that they can bring to a broadcast to make it more dynamic. Built-in animated graphics, all of the built-in layouts, that camera layouts and guest layouts you can use with your various shots or your various guest appearances. Tons of cool things you can do with Switcher Studio, but sometimes you don't necessarily need all that. So anyways, StreamYard has been good for me, and anyway, all that to say, maybe one or two of these points I make may be specific to Switcher Studio, but most of these you will be able to apply across any stream you do, really. So here's my process for prepping a remote live production, specifically when it comes to the guests. So I always try to schedule a tech check, or a brief rehearsal, if you will. So it's just essential if you can get the guests comfortable. And this may seem silly, but to even have to mention, but you want to make sure your guests are as comfortable with the tech side of things as possible before the actual day of the event. That will eliminate a lot of unnecessary stress on them. Again, making for a better stream overall. So for that tech check, I always send out a calendar invite, and I list out these points I'm going to make in that calendar invite. So I'll give them some kind of tips or best practices to make their experience easier. So in that invite, I send the link to join the video chat room, and I let them know, hey, this link will work on Chrome, Firefox, or Safari browsers. Most people have those browsers, but a lot of folks that I work with on a daily basis work for, maybe they work for a federal agency, and their default browser is Internet Explorer. So I feel like it is necessary that, if they click on that link in my meeting invite and their default browser is Internet Explorer and it takes them to an error page, they're not like, well, what's going on? They can go back to the meeting invite and see, oh, I got to open Chrome or Firefox or Safari, and that's good. I also note to, and this is the one that's specific to Switcher Studio, I tell my guests when they log in on Switcher, there is an option to turn on or off remote camera mode. I make sure they leave that off. That ensures that they're able to see everybody else in the video chat and have a normal conversational experience. This next point I always like to make is, if you're at home, use a device connected to Ethernet or Wi-Fi. If you're using Wi-Fi, try to be as close to your Wi-Fi router as you possibly can, to enable the best internet connection. I know, we're all kind of working in, or a lot of folks are working in their homes these days, and all kinds of crazy environments. So I know it is hard to pick a space in the house with maybe this, the space in the house with the strongest internet connection may not be the quietest. And that's another point I make to the guests, is try to find a quiet space free from distraction. I understand that the quietest space in your house may not have the best internet connection, or vice versa. So, you kind of have to pick that balance there. But obviously, I think you want the quiet space free from distraction. If it's impossible to, maybe you can work with your family or whoever else is in your house, that during the time of your event, you get that space, even if it may be in the living room or the kitchen, you get that space during your live event that has the best internet connection. So that's a point I like to make. And then another one's been an interesting one, because sometimes, it works for the guests, and sometimes it doesn't necessarily apply. So I tell my guests to log out of any VPN that they may be using for their work. VPNs tend to hinder connection or block, particularly with Switcher Studio. We've seen it's blocked it from Switcher Studio being able to use their device's camera and microphone. Now, I know I've also come across some folks that have to log into their work VPN in order to actually have internet access. So in a lot of cases, and a couple of those folks where that's been the case, they've been able to log into Switcher Studio no problem, and things have gone on without a hitch. Their connection looks great. But more often than not, we find that when folks are logged into some sort of VPN for their work, it does get in the way somehow of the video connection or the internet connection in general. So we tell them to get out of that first if they can, before trying to join the video chat. And also, I throw it in there to avoid having large windows in your background. Rather, face them to take advantage of natural lighting. Again, I know a lot of people are working in kind of crazy environments for the most part. So we're going to do everything we can to get you the best lighting, get you make you look the best. So if we can eliminate some of these pieces before our tech check. If you have a chance to review some of this before your event, it's going to make the experience all that much better. So face windows, get as much natural light as you can. Don't have gigantic windows in your background. And the last point I like to make to them is, if possible, use headphones or earbuds that have a built-in microphone. And this is especially important when you have multiple guests because, certain people may have more powerful microphones than you do. And when, you speak through their computer speakers, their microphone picks that up and it kind of becomes this circle of echoes that come in and out of the broadcast. So you want to minimize the chance for echo as much as possible. So when you have multiple guests you're doing remote productions with, if possible, make sure folks can put in headphones or earbuds that have a built-in microphone. Obviously, not everybody's setup may allow for that. So you just have to do what you can. Maybe it's a matter of, a lot of times something that helps for me is if people aren't using headphones, I'll at least see if they can turn down their speaker volume pretty low enough to where they can hear the other guests and hear what's, have a good conversation. But it does seem to help with any sort of echo or audio feedback that you sometimes experience. So, and another key point is I always, for my tech checks, I have a separate conference call phone line set up just in case they can't get in the video chat room at all. And that way we can pick up the phone and I can talk them through any sort of troubleshooting issues. That has been fantastic. It also helps, if there are multiple people that want to participate in a tech check or a live stream, I always have my phone open with a conference call line for folks that just want to listen in, kind of monitor what's being said or monitor the messaging aspect of things. But we don't necessarily want them joining the video chat room or the stream to take up unnecessary bandwidth. So having that kind of separate designated conference call line is always nice for multiple reasons. So hope, this was a quick one, but hope some of those tips help. If you are, again, if you're producing a remote live event, obviously you as the producer, whether it's a panel discussion or just, a Q&A or a podcast, you want to make sure your setup at home is solid internet connection, video, audio is good, but equally as important is your guests' connection, audio and video, obviously, and you want to give yourself as much time as you possibly can and set them up as much as you possibly can for success. Sometimes, obviously, things happen last minute, especially when it comes to events. So sometimes you have to roll with the punches. You're not always going to have time to do everything that I just laid out, but if you can, you want to prepare your guests as much as possible with some of those tips I outlined. So last few words before I wrap up. If you're taking a look at this or you're listening on the podcast, much appreciated. You can find more episodes of my podcast at jeffkozlovsky.com/podcast. You can also check out jeffkozlovsky.com for streaming, video production, content marketing related articles. And of course, if you do listen to the podcast, wherever you get your podcast, leave a review, leave a rating. It would be much appreciated. So thank you all so much if you tuned in, and hope you have a great rest of your Friday. Wherever you are, enjoy your weekend. Thank you so much. Take care.